So I am in somewhere in California, about 70-ish miles from Sacramento, I want to say. So solidly in Northern California. I am by exit 580. I think maybe further in than that. Looking at my windshield, you can determine two things, and for this you do not need to consult a weather map. Those two things are that A, the temperature is relatively high compared to what I have left, like in Seattle, Minnesota, etc. And B, that there is no wind. And you can tell that by just looking at the splatter marks from all the bugs I've killed, probably in the last several hours, probably 3 hours that I've been driving in California. It wasn't so bad when I was back in Oregon. I've been driving through what is significantly been farmland. A little while ago, close to Corning, California, there were a lot of olives being grown. There were several signs that said olive country or something to that extent. I'll have to look that up. I couldn't quite figure out which of the trees exactly were olives. It seemed like there were about 4 or 5 different crops maybe that were predominantly grown in that stretch. In that stretch, probably just north of Redding to a little south of Corning. I remember olives being described as having glossy leaves, common of the Mediterranean trees, but I was obviously relatively far from the trees. The strangest thing about seeing all of this is the ginormous scale of the agriculture. There are rows upon rows that extend for miles and miles, and to an extent you see this with the corn and the wheat and all the other crops that are grown out in Iowa. But with California, it seems like everything is just magnified several fold. I'm sure the same is the case with Texas. I have driven through about a third of California. I'm sure I'm going to continue seeing this forever, ever and ever. The sky is really big here. I've been mostly driving through flat country. It's kind of strange. I think this is probably an extended valley or something like that. A few miles, maybe 5 miles to my right to the west are fairly imposing hills, and similarly to my east there are fairly imposing hills as well, but they're kind of faint in the background. Let me try panning over and see if I can, if the camera can capture it. I'm kind of bummed we aren't driving through that kind of country, but you know, it's much faster just driving on plain roads, and given that I still have about 150 miles left to drive, I'll take it. I can't complain. Slowly pan over to the right, to the west. There's a setting sun. You can see that the sun is more west than it is south here, which is kind of strange. I believe I'm going fairly south, but I've gotten so used to the sun at this time of the year being almost south that I need to recalibrate my internal compass. The skies have been fairly blue, a little bit of a haze. a sign for a child abduction with a GMC Yukon with some California license plate. So I'll be on the lookout for sure. Lots and lots of trucking. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of trucking. It's quite strange how few cars you see here. I mean, we are away from the major city, I think. In a little bit, you'll start seeing more urban traffic from Sacramento. But the traffic here so far has just been mostly trucker. There's some signs of large-scale agriculture. You see maybe a few of these silos or elevators or whatever they're called. They're never quite clustered together as many like that back in Minnesota. There are probably one or two. Here they're just a cluster of 12 of them or something. One thing I have noticed is there hasn't really been a railway track along the highway. That I felt was fairly common in Montana, Wyoming, for a good chunk of Washington. I kept seeing trains all the time, but it is decidedly not the case here. It's kind of strange. You do see some McMansions. I really wonder who would buy housing in this part of the world. We are, again, I guess close to Sacramento, but still so far out. I sure as hell would find no value of living here. I'm looking forward to this thing because it's warmer temperatures, presumably a little more predictable weather. I can go out running and stuff like that. I imagine San Francisco is going to be less predictable in the sense of it being so close to the sea and probably being a little cooler than it is out here inland. I should maybe someday look up what it's like to take the Pacific Highway, Highway 101 over here, rather than take I-5 all the way south. Oh, I do see some trains now to my left. Strange, speak of the devil. They are fairly immobile though. There seems to be some kind of a loading dock. Oh, here's the agriculture I was talking about. Just rows upon rows upon rows upon rows upon rows. More rows of some tree that I cannot figure out where it is. We're about 57 miles from Sacramento, as the sign says. But doesn't quite keep going. There's some cleared land, it looks like, but I'm sure there's just some kind of rotation going on. Lost a little bit of stability there. No worries. That's what the rumble strip is for. I don't know if you can see the hills in the background. There's a big haze and the clouds also seem kind of just amorphous blobs. Really boring. Maybe that's just what the inland. I keep wanting to call it the Inland Empire, like the folks out in SoCal do. But I don't know if that's the correct term. We are, after all, in NorCal, not NoCal, as I learned.